Board of Commissioners for Tuesday, April 16th, 2024. A copy of the Open Meetings Act is located in the north wall of the chamber, as well as an external defibrillator. Please stand for the pledge. We'll commence the meeting for the Douglas County Board of Equalization. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Morgeson. Commissioner Boyle. Commissioner Kavanaugh. Commissioner Friend. Commissioner Morgan. Commissioner Rogers. Mr. Chair.
Here. First items of business are items A and B. A being the approval of the minutes of the Board of Equalization meeting held Tuesday, April 9th, 2024, as well as item B, call for a meeting and set Tuesday, April 23rd, 2024, as date for hearing on certified assessment corrections reflecting the addition of omitted property to the tax rolls or increased value on property. Do I have a motion and a second?
Second.
Motion by Rogers, second by Morgan. Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Next, we have our resolutions, which are resolutions C through E, which motion could include adjournment.
Second.
Motion by Rogers, second by Morgan. Was anybody here to speak on resolutions C through E? If not, we'll vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
That concludes Board of Equalization. We'll now jump into our Douglas County Board of Commissioners meeting. Roll call.
Commissioner Borgeson. Commissioner Boyle. Commissioner Kavanaugh. Commissioner Friend. Commissioner Morgan.
Here.
Commissioner Rogers. Mr. Chair.
Here. First item of business is items 1A and B. A being the approval of minutes for the Board of Commissioners meeting held Tuesday, April 9th, 2024, and B, the approval of claims submitted for payment process through Tuesday, April 16th, 2024. Do I have a motion and a second? Motion by Rogers, second by Friend. Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Our next items are from the consent agenda, items A through I. Do we have a motion and a second for discussion and approval?
Second.
Motion by Rogers, second by Morgan. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Kavanaugh.
Couple of questions for the record. On item B, renew the safe keep contracts between Douglas County Department of Corrections and the Sarpy County Jail. I think I saw Director Myers here. If you could just, for the record, give the public an idea of what we're renewing here.
Good morning, Commissioners. Michael Myers, Director of Corrections for Douglas County. Our safe keep agreements are basically the rates.
I'm sorry, Mike, if you could just speak up a little.
Sorry. Michael Myers, Director of Corrections. Our safe keep agreements basically are when we house inmates in other facilities and vice versa. We do that sometimes for a variety of reasons. It could be that there's a relative of an employee or a staff member who's been significantly hurt by the particular inmate, or it could be at the court's request if there are multiple people on the same case that they want them separated into different facilities.
Mike, in the resolution, I think in the supporting documents, it indicates a per diem of $99.09.
I'm going to have to look at. I believe it was set at 120. I think it used to be 99, but I'm gonna have to double check that. My
That's
staff
until
actually
July
put-
1st, where the per diem
Correct.
shall be 120.
That's correct. Sarpy County requested for budget planning purposes. As you know, our costs have escalated quite a bit recently. They asked that we wait until their new fiscal year to raise the rate.
Okay. What is our actual per diem cost for holding somebody 24 hours at the correction center?
Right now, it's actually about 132. We negotiated, as a sort of a good neighbor, and we house their people, they house our people, the $120 rate.
Okay. And we have these agreements with other entities, I think the feds and other people.
We do.
Is the standard per diem reimbursement the same for everybody?
It is not. This is 120 is the rate with the marshals currently. We're locked into that for another year and a half or so before we can renegotiate that. We had to lock into that rate a few years back in order to get a higher rate. And we are currently in negotiations with the city I can't really elaborate on that because we are in negotiations with them, but their rate is less than that right now. But we're looking at a kind of a whole different billing model potentially with our agreement with the city going forward.
So would it be fair to say the city of Omaha is the largest entity that we hold people for?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And do you happen to know what the per diem we charge them is currently?
It is right around that $100 mark
Okay.
currently.
And is that coming due? You said you're in negotiations.
Yes, it's due by the end of the year, end of the calendar year.
Do we do these on kind of an annual basis?
No, they're usually multi-year agreements, and then we will maybe have an agreement that allows them the costs, to escalate according to a formula that we negotiate with each entity.
Do you have an idea, and I'm sorry to get into this,
That's all right.
kind of one thing leads to another. Do you have an idea per annum how many people we hold for all the other jurisdictions combined?
Well, I suppose technically that's all of them because we don't arrest anybody, but I believe there was about, Commissioner, I would rather get you the
We
numbers.
can do this when you do your
Yeah,
regular report.
I just looked at these numbers. I don't want to get them wrong.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other comments on consent agenda?
I just have one.
Oh. Okay.
This is on item D, resolution to approve the 2024 restatement of the Douglas County Employees Retirement Plan, including amendments. And I don't know, perhaps the county attorney could clarify this for us. My understanding is that since maybe 2014, 2015, amendments have been made to the retirement plan which aren't encapsulated in what we give to recent hire employees, and so this would update all of those. Is that correct?
Tracy, your county attorney's office, that is correct. It's been a number of years since we've done a restatement, so it's gotten a little difficult to read the plan because you have to read the plan and then each of the subsequent amendments, and this will consolidate all the amendments into a new plan document.
Is there anything else?
No.
Just the changes that have been made since 20?
There is one new change that you haven't pre-approved. All the other changes have been pre-approved in various years.
And what is the new change?
The new change relates to, and I didn't do this particular agreement, but it relates to the long-term disability, I believe.
And what would be the effect of adopting that with all these other changes?
Well, it relates to how long-term disability is counted towards your pension time, your calculation for your time.
Right. But what I'm saying is, these others are different in that they have been approved by the retirement committee, is that correct?
And the board, I believe. So maybe
And the
there was a
board.
change back in like 2020,
Right.
or in subsequent years to the last restatement.
So this one with long-term care has not had that approval process?
It is not. It is. Yes, it is not. That is
Okay.
correct.
So I'm just trying to distinguish between all these others and this one in terms of the effect that it would have on our employees. All
Commissioner-
these others have been in
Yeah,
effect
I
for
can-
some time.
Yeah, go ahead, Patrick.
So this really pertains to any employee.
Patrick, you need to identify yourself.
Patrick Bloomingdale, County Administrator. So this would pertain to an employee who might end up going on disability and no longer is an employee. They're on disability. And in the past, or currently, we've had a situation where an employee goes on long-term disability, and so they're no longer an employee, they're on long-term disability, but they continue to accrue years of service towards their pension without contributing any money to the pension plan. So that's been in the plan for a long time. I don't know how it got in there or why it got in there, but it shouldn't be in there because you have to, if one thing, if you're going to accrue years of service, you have to be contributing to the pension plan, and so they're not employees. So this does not pertain to current retiree or current people who are on long-term disability. This would pertain to anybody in the future that would go on long-term disability. So it's just fixing an error that should never really have been in there in the first place.
And would this, our action today, put this in effect for all employees in that category going forward?
Yeah, any employee who, going forward, who would end up on long-term disability.
15 seconds.
So these are terms and conditions of employment, I guess you could say, in terms of the retirement benefit package, which are normally subject to collective bargaining with our collective bargaining units. Would there be any employees
It's time.
in our employ who would not be covered by this because they're in a collective bargaining unit that would subject this to negotiations?
It's time. Do you want to take a third official round, Jim? And
I'm
Mr.
sorry?
Kavanaugh? That was your time. Did you
Oh,
want to?
I'm sorry, I'll take it up.
Okay, and Ron, this is a 2-minute one.
Okay.
Do you want
So
to
that's the
continue?
question.
Yeah.
So there was 3 bargaining units that contested it, and so this would not apply to those going forward unless we are able to get them to agree to it.
Okay.
But the other ones have not, so it will apply to those.
Appreciate that. And just for the record, what were those 3 bargaining units?
FOP2, which is the sheriff's, FOP8, which is corrections, and IBEW, which represents employees in a variety of different departments.
Thank you. Okay, on this particular one, because I'm probably not going to vote for it, I don't know if we separate it out from the others or what, but,
Yeah, we can pull it out, do it
Okay.
individually.
okay.
All right. The original motion or second, are you okay with pulling that one out? Because it wasn't technically motioned that way. All right, I see an okay, so cool. We'll pull out D and vote on the rest of the consent agenda, A through I.
Give me one moment, please. Thanks. Okay, thank you.
Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Now we will vote on consent agenda item D, which was pulled out.
Do we need a motion in a second?
Motion by Rogers, second by Morgan. Yep.
Clarify, the restatement of the existing changes that have been endorsed by the board and by the retirement committee, I don't have any problem with those. Those already exist. As I've expressed before, this change to the long-term disability, I would not be able to support that at this time for a couple of different reasons. I don't particularly understand why we're doing this with the other package, which are changes that have been already approved in the normal process. And this is a different item, a horse of a different color that's being included in this overall thing. So because of that, I am not able to support this particular resolution. But I don't oppose the other restatement changes. I think those are important, should be made. So I will abstain for those purposes.
Thank you. If nothing else, let's vote.
Motion passes. Commissioner Kavanaugh abstaining, all other commissioners voting yes.
Thank you. We're going to move to our agenda items under 3, recognition and proclamations. The first one relating to National Public Safety Telecommunications Week, which we have a proclamation for. If our staff from 911 would like to kind of join us up front, you're definitely welcome to, as well as sharing a few words after I read the proclamation. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that there was going to be a video as well.
Oh, is there a video? Okay.
Uh-huh.
All right, let's play the video, then the proclamation.
As an operator, we take all of the incoming 911 lines. We ask the public, do you need police, fire, or medical assistance? If they need fire and rescue assistance, then we transfer them up to the fire and rescue dispatch, who then do the interrogation part of fire and rescue. If they need police, we are the ones that gather all the information needed to create a call for dispatch.
Frantic parents are the ones that are really hard to deal with, and I understand because I am a parent. And to get someone out of that frantic state in that moment, their child is choking, you don't hear any noise in the background, so you know that this is a dire situation, and you give them the instructions, they follow them, you can hear it working, and you hear that baby's cry at the end, or you hear that kid scream. I'm so glad that kid is crying, because they're breathing. We did our job. We've got help on the way to them, but in the meantime, we've made that difference. It brings me to tears sometimes because you're so happy that you can give this parent that relief. Being put in that position, putting yourself in that position and feeling that way, it's a horrendous situation, but being able to help them and give them that relief. You know that relief when you're panicked as a parent, and then you don't have to be panicked anymore because everything's safe. That's the relief that we get.
I think it is very important to be able to say the right things that a person may need to hear. A lot of people do not have that support, so they don't hear that they're important, that they matter, that they're loved. Luckily, I am one of the many people that are able to help people kind of calm down a little bit and think a little clearer.
I love my job. I love coming to work every day. I love being here. The people I work with, the people that I have served for, whether it be, like I said, the police officers, the firemen. I love that aspect of the job. And being able to help people is just an added bonus that just makes it so much better.
As an operator, we take all of the incoming 911 lines. We ask the public.
Awesome, thank you very much. That's available on multiple online websites and our Facebook page that we've been promoting. Awesome video, and we're going to go ahead and read the proclamation here, and then we'll let our wonderful staff introduce themselves as well. So with that being said, the proclamation reads, whereas emergencies can occur at any time of day or night that may require police, fire, or emergency medical services. And whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. And whereas the safety of our first responders is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone the Douglas County 911 Emergency Communications Department. And whereas the week of April 14th through April 20th, 2024 has been declared National Public Safety Telecommunications Week with the intent to promote 911 awareness and to recognize the invaluable role that 911 operators and dispatchers have in the safety of our communities. And whereas the individuals staffing our 911 center are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services. And whereas the Douglas County 911 Emergency Communications Department dispatches for 15 regional agencies and receives over 600,000 calls each year, 24 hours a day, 365 days per year. Of those calls, over 90% are answered within 10 seconds or less. And whereas our dispatchers and operators have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients, while continuing to exhibit compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their jobs. Now, therefore, be it resolved by this Board of County Commissioners, Douglas County, Nebraska, that this board hereby recognizes the week of April 14th through the 20th, 2024 as National Public Safety Telecommunications Week, highlighting the invaluable role Douglas County 911 operators and dispatchers have in the safety of our community. Dated this day, the 16th of April, 2024. So with that, would you like to introduce yourselves and comment?
Steve Layton, I'm the supervisor for C Shift, and quite honestly, the video, I can't say anything more than what the video says. So.
Thank you.
I'm Michelle Roach Johnson. I am a dispatcher under Steve Layden on C Shift. And yes, those words perfectly encapsulated how we feel and why we make the sacrifices we do to come to work every day.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Giselle Montalvo, and yeah, everything that video said perfectly describes the job duties, and thank you for inviting us.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I have a few colleagues that would like to comment. We'll start with Commissioner Borgeson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here. For us to be able to honor you is our honor. You guys really are, and I've said this for many, many years, that you really are our first responders. You're the unsung heroes. And yes, that video did talk about how your demeanor and your calmness and helping those on that other line, because you're the first ones that they talk to. And so I have been and continue to be totally impressed with the operations out there and the staff out there. And it's my honor to be able to sit here today and honor you during this week and every day throughout the year for what you do for Douglas County. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. We'll jump to Commissioner Boyle.
So I want to reiterate that I also wrote down the term unsung heroes. You really are. I think what's critical to know too is you really are the lifeline that gets people, patients, the help that they need. You're the front of the front line. And I think the most impressive thing is you do a lot of this, you do all of it without seeing what's going on. And that takes a lot of skill. I think what that indicates is your ability to truly listen and try to grasp what people are going through and interpreting and making a quick decision. And that takes a lot of skill. And I'm saying that as a physician. So I recognize that. I also want to tell you that as a physician, I see the results of your work. So when you have, I'm an OBGYN doctor, so when you have that patient and you talk somebody through a delivery or someone's preterm, I see what you've done to get them to my facility so I can take care of them at that point. Your efforts do not go unnoticed. So, and they're incredibly valuable to those of us on the back end of the medical community. So we truly appreciate what you do. We don't say it enough because we're too busy taking care of the situation after you've gotten you've opened the door for them. So, but to understand how important it is to truly listen, that's a huge skill. And a lot of times we don't do a good job of that when we see the patient, but that's really hard to do. So I'm just amazed at your skill set, and I appreciate what you do for the rest of us in the medical community.
Commissioner Morgan.
Well, Maureen just really said it best, but I had the experience of using 911 somewhere else just recently, and all of you in this nation just do a superior job, and want to thank Kathy Allen for her excellent leadership, the environment you work in, but what you do is so caring. So thank you.
We appreciate you very much, and I appreciate you coming down here today. And if there's anything else we can do for you this week to make you feel special, I've been watching on Facebook. You know, I think there's been some donuts, some bagels, and some stuff going on. But any other items that we can take to you and show appreciation, just know that every week and every day of throughout the year, we do appreciate all that you do. Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Borgeson, second by Morgan.
Motion passes 7-0.
Very good. Yeah, let's take a quick pick while we have the three of you here, if that's okay.
Yeah. 1. Nice smiles here. 3, 2, 1. Good. Oh, you bet.
All right, we have one more proclamation today, item B, which I will toss to Commissioner Rogers.
Mr. Chair, I'll read the proclamation, then move it. It says, whereas the esteemed Carol Woods Harris was born on March 17, 1940 in Omaha to James Sr. and Francis M. Paris Anders. And whereas Carol Woods Harris has been a trailblazer throughout her life, breaking barriers and setting new standards of excellence. And whereas from her senior year of high school, Carol Woods Harris demonstrated her pioneering spirit by becoming the first African-American telephone operator for Northwestern Bell. And whereas over the span of 30 years, Carol Woods Harris ascended to a management position within Northwestern Bell, becoming the first African-American woman to hold such a role. And whereas after retiring from Northwestern Bell, Carol Woods Harris continued her legacy of leadership by becoming the first African-American and one of the first women elected to the Douglas County Board of Commissioners, serving as chair in '98 and 2003, and vice chair in '94 and 1995. She served until 2004. And whereas her remarkable service to Nebraska has earned her numerous accolades, including the National Community Leadership Award, the National Role Model Award from Girls, Inc., the Influence Alumni Award from ICANN, and the 100 Black Women of Omaha Legacy Award in Public and Political Advocacy. And whereas Carol Woods Harris graduated from the College of St. Mary's in Omaha in 1990 and received the university's 2020 Alumni Achievement Award. And whereas her dedication extended beyond her professional endeavors, as evidenced by her service on numerous boards and her volunteer work with community organizations. And whereas in 2004, she made history once again by becoming the first African-American elected to the Nebraska State Board of Education. And where she was a loving mother to her children, Vernon, Michael, and Kimberly. She relocated to the Carolinas after retiring from the Douglas County Board, leaving an indelible mark on the hearts and minds of all who had the privilege of knowing her. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners in Douglas County, Nebraska, that this board hereby honors the incredible life of Carol Woods Harris, the first African-American Douglas County Commissioner. And I move approval.
Second.
Motion by Rogers, second by Borgerson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It was Sean Kelly actually that made me aware of this when I emailed it last week, but he also put me on notice that probably 2 weeks before that, she was probably not in the best state of health and that it could come in any moment. So, you know, her passing was not a surprise, but still, nonetheless, not the impact of it is not felt. I think personally, I owe Carol a lot. You know, before I got elected to this board, I was elected to the Metropolitan Community College Board. And, you know, she had supported me all through my efforts then, but ironically, a story that I've told in a few close settings, but not publicly, it's probably the first time I told it publicly. In 2000, I was appointed to the Metropolitan Community College Board in 1999. In 2000, I ran and won. She ran for her third term at the same time. My office was across the street at the old United Way when I worked there, and she was here, and her office at the time was in Mike Friend's current office. And she called me over there on Friday. And I walked over Friday, and she said, I'm not running in 4 years. Are you interested? I said, yes, I am. And at that time, Mike Fahey had won the mayor's race about 6 months later. So I was on the third floor, and my Tuesday morning routine was I'd look at the county board every Tuesday from 9 to noon, and at that time, they may run to 4 because they'd end up on the Jesse Lowe conference room. And then I'd do my duties as part of Mayor Fahey's staff. And then she told me she was running, but she de facto kind of endorsed me, but she never officially gave it to me. And she made me work for it, even though she was there. She wanted to see if I took the office seriously and the commitment to the citizens seriously. So she pretty much set me up. I had to go the rounds to get the sign-offs from more senior people to see if they were running. They knew she was backing me, but she made me do the rounds anyway, just for the respect for the office. And so endorsement and everything came, but I owe her a lot. She set me up in the role and was there if I needed it. And say I appreciate her and miss her a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Borgerson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Rogers, for honoring Commissioner Carol Woods Harris. I actually served with Carol for about 10 years, and I've said before that there's 2 words that describe her, and that is classy lady. She was a very quiet, kind of soft-spoken, didn't say a whole lot, but she did a lot of background work and a lot of deep thinking before she actually spoke. And she was always, even through some of the most, the exorbitant issue was one of our huge issues at the time. And she was always just very respectful, and I think that played well for the whole board. She was a calming effect for the board. And I had the privilege of serving with her, and I will miss her as well. So thank you, Chris.
Thank you. All right. With that, we do have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. We will move on to our presentation today. We have one under 4A, presentation of the SAVI Student Loan Program through Public Promise Insurance. And we have a presenter who will introduce himself shortly.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for having me. My name is Tim Brown. I work for the National Association of Counties in a program they have begun called Public Promise Insurance. So we're primarily focused on bringing workforce solutions for county employees. And today we're here to talk about our newest one, which is focused on student debt forgiveness, which you may have seen quite a bit about in the local news or national news. A little bit of background on why we chose to focus on student loan forgiveness for county employees. As you may have seen quite often, there's quite a bit of press around student debt forgiveness, but we're seeing that while quite a bit of it is out there, it's never been probably more difficult to attain or understand what's the next step I'm supposed to take as a county employee. Currently, there's 4 million Americans that would qualify for student debt forgiveness, and the average student debt balance in this country is $37,000. There's actually over $300 billion of available forgiveness, so the issue isn't that is it there so much as is there a pathway to go grab it if you have student debt today. As many of you maybe know, during the COVID forbearance period, many had their student debt payments paused for up to 3 to 3.5 years. Unfortunately, when those loans came back in the fourth quarter of last year, over 40% of borrowers missed their first payment. Now, this was not necessarily tied 100% to their issue as much as the lenders were trying to get back on track with how they sent in payment requests. But over 100,000 borrowers were sent the wrong invoice for their student debt. And unfortunately, that led to an over 2 to 2.5 hour wait time for many lenders. So figuring out how to fix this for yourself is not an easy thing. So the two key forgiveness programs out there are public student or public service loan forgiveness. This is a huge benefit for county employees. One of the main criteria for public service loan forgiveness is that you are a public sector employee or you work for a 501c3 nonprofit. It requires an employment verification, so your staff quite often probably sees these forms coming in to verify employment. But after you make 120 qualified payments on a federal loan, you can actually have the remainder of your student debt completely forgiven. What's very unique about what's about to happen is the federal government is in the middle of a recount towards this. So traditionally, you would not think that the 3 to 3.5 years worth of payments that you didn't make could count towards these 120 payments if you were a county employee. In fact, they are going to count that COVID forbearance period that you had paused payments as long as you were working for a qualified employer like a county government. And so we see this as a huge opportunity to educate employees, county employees, on the fact that you might think you're 5 years from public service loan forgiveness when in fact you're only 18 months away. As a result, we see that as a huge way to get additional debt forgiveness for county employees, as well as an enormous retention tool for the county as a benefit. The other big program that you're probably seeing more media attention around right now is called income-driven repayment. This essentially takes your monthly student debt payment and it lowers it down to a certain percentage of your discretionary household income. The most popular one right now is called SAVE. You'll probably read a little bit about that in the news. And in July, that will lower your monthly payment to 5% of your discretionary income. What that will likely do is increase the amount of people that qualify for these IDR programs to actually reduce their monthly payment. So the issue again isn't that there are other programs out there that work. These programs have actually been around for years. Public service loan forgiveness was founded in 2007. It's how do we get it? And there's over 150 different income-driven repayment programs, and the average person honestly would have no idea on how to determine which one they qualify for. As a result, NACO and Public Promise Insurance Program partnered with a group, Savvy. Probably the easiest way to think about it, since hopefully everyone got their taxes in Monday, but it's a version of TurboTax for your student debt forgiveness. So very similar process in that you answer some very simple questions. It scans over 150 different programs and essentially helps you with the entire application process. Unfortunately, while there are so many programs out there, over 50% of applicants are still being denied, not because they do not qualify for student debt forgiveness, because they did not follow the correct application process. And that's wrong. And so we're trying to figure out how we can simplify that process, especially when it comes to our county workforce. So through the program, it's a very simple, again, 10-minute process for employees. They can go through and answer questions about their household, their employment history, where they went to school, and they can even link their actual loan accounts into the calculator so that they can ensure, A, any kind of debt forgiveness estimate they receive is accurate, and B, once they need to go in and actually apply, that application is filled out perfectly to avoid this as an issue. And as a result, the Savvy program has shown a 99% acceptance rate whenever the application has come in through them. As I mentioned, we had an opportunity to present to your HR committee and show the tool in a little bit more detail, but having used it myself, I can say it's a very simple process. It should not take more than 10 minutes. What I very much like about it as an employee benefit is there are no costs just to use the tool to determine what student debt forgiveness you qualify for. Any county employee could come in, complete the calculator, and if they determine they qualify, then determine if they'd want support in that application process. If they choose to not take that support or they've got what they need after that application process, there'd be no cost. They would have just been further educated on their opportunities. So as I mentioned, the tool itself will scan 150 different programs available, tell them exactly what they qualify. From there, they can say, I would like you to take the next step. I would like you to do all the applications for me and make sure that they're done correctly. Help me with that employer verification process because I am a county employee. And if they do that, the cost is $70 per year. The other option is to have a loan concierge assigned. So some prefer to deal with a human versus going through the self-serve process. And that is $150. These fees have been significantly discounted based on our NACO's national relationship with this vendor, having vetted them through that process. As an employer, you have the opportunity, if you choose to fund these user fees on behalf of the employee, and you can do so at either the self-serve or the concierge level. Why that can be very helpful is it can actually help you track the utilization of your county employees using the tool. So this is pulled from a sample of a county that we partnered with in December, and you'll see they've had 742 different folks go in and use the tool. But what's mind-boggling is that of those 742 folks, $24 million of student debt sits on their back currently. And of that, they were able to identify 15.7 million of it, which could be forgiven through one of these programs. So very significant considering it was 742. Typically, what we see on average is that about a third of your employee population will have student debt of some level. What's been most eye-opening to us is it's not just the younger generation. It's more increasingly popular to take out what's called a Parent Plus loan, in which you are actually taking student debt out on behalf of your children. And if you are a county employee, you can actually qualify to have that loan forgiven through the public service loan forgiveness channel. The other thing that I really like about this program is it's updated in real time. Your HR team would have the ability to go in and at any time see who's utilizing the program. The other key component is when you do public service loan forgiveness, your HR team is very likely handed more often paper forms. Once the employee completes this process, it would actually pre-fill their entire application, which could be sent to whoever's verifying employment on your teams, and they can easily through DocuSign click and sign and have it back to them in a matter of minutes versus what typically takes over an hour. So we think it can be a benefit to the administration team as well. So if Douglas County were to propose a employer-paid benefit or cover a portion of the fees for their employees, you'd receive a customized Douglas County website, so your employees would see that it would come in through your channel, as well as when they would go to maybe potentially utilize the application support, it would cross out the fee and it'd appear as an employer-offered benefit. More than anything, we're passionate about getting the public service loan forgiveness in front of every employee. What we see as a very common misstep is employees don't sign up for the program in the correct way, and then they end up overpaying on a student debt that they could have actually had this forgiveness for. In addition, we think it's a huge retention tool, as mentioned, if we can put in front of an employee that they are only 12, 16, 18 months away from getting an enormous amount forgiven because they are a county employee. So that will be a key reason as to why they were able to get that amount forgiven. In your documents, we've kind of showed what the different cost outlays would be against what we see as the book of business average forgiveness per user. But what's impressive about the program is it identifies a little over $28,000 per person that goes in and uses the calculator. So as I mentioned, there's over $300 billion of available forgiveness programs out there, and we're really just trying to help pair your employees up with the one that's best for them. With that, I'll close and just thank you so much for your time. We've seen, again, huge success. As I mentioned, the one county that we launched in December, it's only been up a few months, and they've already identified almost $16 million worth of debt forgiveness. So thank you for the time.
All right, thank you. We'll jump into questions, starting with Commissioner Friend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Tim, it's Tim, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sorry. Tim, thanks for the information. And I've seen your presentation before. It's very intriguing. And I was wondering if you could provide some clarity, because this issue for the last, I don't know, year and a half, nationwide and locally, both, has been gaslighted. And here's what I mean by that. I went to a school and I took out probably $25,000 in student loans. By the time I was 41, I had them all paid off. I didn't see any other options available to me. I mean, they were going to garnish my wages, and so I had to pay them. So I'm 41 years old. I've got a wife and 4 kids, and I don't have any money. My own decision, my own fault. Where the gaslighting comes in and where people don't understand, I was hoping you could provide some clarity. When we talk about loan forgiveness, that's the first thing that occurs to a lot of folks, me included at times, is who's subsidizing it. And when we talk about who's subsidizing it, the discussion transfers or moves into an area where it says, we're simply addressing existing federal law and the options available to a borrower. Federal law, options available to a borrower to try to reduce that burden. A burden that they signed up for. I mean, they know they've got $30,000 of student loans, but there's federal law out there that says these can be forgiven. Just so we're clear, what you're doing is saying, look, you missed all this. Federal law indicates that you could do this, this, and this. Take advantage of it until they decide, the feds decide, no, you don't have this potential solution anymore. That's all we're doing, right? I mean, you're helping people identify the type of options they have available to them from a federal and a state standpoint. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct. So we're essentially, it's just too confusing out there to understand those pathways that you mentioned to what federal laws could apply to my situation. And so, correct, we're not creating any kind of a policy here, essentially just saying, here are we scan all the policies out there and say, this is the ones that you apply for. And then from then, a borrower would make the personal decision as to whether or not they wanted to sign up.
This is kind of a joke, but so can I go in and look at, oh, never mind.
No, it's actually the number one question I get, which is, well, could it apply to my form? And
yeah, you anticipated my joke.
Yeah, no, but I wish it did work that way. But
yeah, well, I'm sure it doesn't. Tim, that's good clarity. I think people need to understand that if changes and opportunities are going to occur, they're going to occur at the federal and state level, and they're going to occur with lawmakers' initiatives. What your organization and what others are doing is trying to offer options that are available to people right now, legally available to people right now that they just don't have the experience to weave their way through. So
absolutely, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Cavanaugh.
Thanks for this, Tim. I don't think I'm the only one here with college-age kids, so this is very topical, but let me see if I understand this. So as a lawyer, I represented people with Social Security claims for many years. And the only way that you would be compensated as their representative would be if you were successful in getting them benefits, and you would get a percentage of their past due benefits. Okay. If I understand this correctly, what you're saying is if you're a qualified county employee and you want to file for this loan forgiveness, is it your group, or is this separate from your group? This insurance company,
Savvy they are a separate company that we partner.
Okay, you don't work for Savvy.
I don't. No, NACO. I work for the NACO, okay. The national.
So Savvy would help this county employee seek this loan forgiveness, and the county would pay Savvy some type of a fee or premium?
Correct. They would pay an administration fee, but only after it had already been identified that the employee did in fact qualify for the debt forgiveness.
Okay, so the employee doesn't qualify, we don't pay Savvy.
Correct. Even if they use the tool and qualify and choose not to move forward for whatever reason, you would not pay. You would not pay unless they signed up for the actual support of getting the application filed and fulfilled.
Okay, but the only time that Savvy receives a fee is when the county employee gets loan forgiveness.
When the county employee starts the process. So just to clarify, so the calculator will identify for them what they qualify for. When they start doing work on the process, it does trigger the fee. They do have a money back guarantee around if they're unsuccessful in getting forgiveness.
So if I read this correctly, someplace in here it says if you go into this process and you have student debt by yourself, your chances of securing it are about 50%. With Savvy's help, those chances are about 99%. Is that accurate?
Right. And to give a little color on that, so essentially one of the main issues is that there has traditionally been one lender, Mohila, who's managed all public service debt forgiveness. Unfortunately, it's gone poorly, and the Department of Education is taking it back over. And so a lot of the delays that come in, and it's not just tied to being denied, it's being denied and not understanding why you were denied. So often when you submit that application, you're denied, but not necessarily understanding what's your next step. And so that sometimes they're able to also help someone through that process.
So I think you mentioned, or somewhere in here were some averages. We have like 2,000 employees. So on average, how many of those would be eligible for this kind of loan forgiveness?
Typically, it's about 1/3. So I too went to college, but I'll have to do some quick math here in my head.
No, I'm with you. But there's no age limit. I mean, you could have a loan forgiveness and be, a non-traditional student, as they call us.
Yes, absolutely. We're actually seeing loans forgiven also into people into their 50s and 60s still carrying their own student debt.
So certainly you've dealt with counties our size that have bought into this program. Do you have any idea the average cost to the county of participating in this for a county our size?
Yeah, I would say traditionally when you see, and one of the, it's really tied to utilization. You should expect about 80% utilization. And on the slide I had up, I have to grab it, I'm sorry, but there's, it's really about, I think it should be under $140,000 annually if you got everybody to sign up for it. So we can get you, but that chart, and I apologize, I don't have it in front of me, but that we sent over has kind of the different step ups. But it would be probably between $50,000 and $140,000, but depending on how much utilization you actually had.
That's time.
Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Borgeson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And that chart, Commissioner Kavanaugh, is the very last page in terms of cost for each one of the, either the $70 or $150 program. But thank you, Tim. I was excited to bring this to the county for the purposes when we talked about the retention. We all know that everywhere we're having a hard time not only recruiting but retaining folks. And so when we start to look at benefits that, again, that are out there, we're just giving them a tool to go and grab them if they qualify. But it is one of those where it will, again, be a benefit to that employee, and hopefully we will retain them in their employment by offering more and more of these really amazing benefits that are out there that many don't know about, or, as you said, maybe have started to look and then messed up and didn't go any further with it. So this again, I'm looking at not only the program is wonderful, and appreciate you and all of the staff that work at NACO and bring these resources and tools to us, but again, excited for the employees that, again, they would potentially have a benefit that would help them as well as help us in that retention piece of their employment. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a comment on Zoom. Luis?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Excellent. I've been listening, and thanks, Commissioner Borgeson, for clarifying what.
Luis, can you identify yourself, please?
Oh, yeah, Luis Jimenez, 2709 Dewey Avenue. That it's a tool for attracting new talent and retaining folks that work as employees of the county. I am trying to work some numbers here. At the beginning of the presentation, the gentleman, Tim, said that there was 4 million Americans that qualified for loan forgiveness. So have you guys identified your current pool of employees that would qualify for loan forgiveness, that they've had oversight on those qualifications? I predict that you have about 60 employees in your workforce that would benefit from this tool. But other than that, I think that this is an important matter, and any bit helps for the relief of this debt. Unfortunately, the state of Nebraska opposed the Biden administration's first attempt to forgive student loan, and from there, since last year, the Biden administration has forgiven billions upon billions. So I take it this is money or debt, as Mr. Friend pointed out that these are already functions of the program that employees can tap into. So I appreciate the effort. I think this is going to be it's going to have a small, very, very, very small impact, but to attract talent to see, well, this is something else that the county might have for me. I think that's smart. Thanks for the presentation.
Can I address?
Thank you. Yep, Tim?
I believe if the comment was that there's 2,000 employees, a third of that would be closer to over 600 employees. So if you look at 600 employees, and if you get the average lifetime savings, it's almost $17 million of debt forgiveness across those 600 employees. So I do think it can have an impact. To touch on the federal piece of it, that's an important note. So when the Supreme Court ruling did come down that student debt forgiveness couldn't be just blanketed, you have to be in one of these programs in order to receive it now. So when you read in the media around debt forgiveness, if you're not signed up for one of the programs, you aren't able to receive it. And the other huge component is you likely will see large amounts of private lenders trying to come and get people to refinance their student debt now that it's come back. The moment a county employee refinances their student debt from federal to private, they lose the ability for forgiveness forever on that debt. So the other huge component of this is education in terms of before you go refinance with a private lender, please make sure if your intent is just to get your debt monthly payment down that you've looked at these other avenues as well.
Thank you. Anybody else on this item? Larry?
Excuse me. Thank you. You might not be happy with what I have. Larry Store, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, 68132. I'd like to ask everybody to come over to this side of the room and down off your ivory tower to listen to the perspective of a citizen that doesn't understand all this. National Association of Counties is a nonprofit organization. Savvy is probably not, but they will profit out of this. Now this reminds me of a topic that I often refer to as cultural Marxism. If you listen, if you can hear all of what's said today, because when I play back, sometimes you can't hear the volume, even if I use the earphones. But if you can hear it, and you can go through that, which they didn't show, very briefly in very simple terms, this is Marxism. This is free stuff for everybody. My granddaughter doesn't get this. She teaches down in Florida. I can't get it. I graduated in '68. Why do other people, these youngsters, get a free ride, get bailed out? This is communism. Frown if you want, but you need to think about what the citizens that don't follow you, that don't understand that you are a part of a national program, think of it. If they've done any education about the difference between Americanism, free enterprise, a republic, versus Marxism or Islamism, then they understand that this language is what Mark Levin talks about in his book, long time ago written. And you can see it every day in this board, in your resolutions and your proclamations, sometimes even your official law, whatever you call it, law for. But NACO, the words, just simply listen to the words. Don't listen to what he said. Public promise, insurance. Excuse me, are you going to pay for that? Student loan forgiveness? Oh, that really gets a lot of people like me upset. Why do all these young students get their loans forgiven? Explain it. All that money. Key forgiveness programs. Forgive, forgive, forgive. That's free for all and all for one. Savvy. That's a play on words. Are you savvy? Public Promise Insurance. Are you savage? NACO sponsorship. NACO is a national organization that you listen to, but you don't listen to us. You pay dues. In fact, I think you are the past president, Marianne. Simplified member experience. Options, basic, essential, and pro. Free or $70 or $150. Not free to me if you pay for those. Because it comes out of my taxes, right?
30 seconds.
I'm just about done here. The county chooses to fund either the essential or the pro. There's the proof of the pudding. The county funds it. And the last couple of pages, which aren't on those screens, oh my goodness. 100% is how much? Does that say $52,000 million?
That's the amount forgiven.
Yeah.
That's time.
Boy, I don't know how we can afford that.
Thank you, Larry.
Yeah. I think you should vote against it and stop.
We will jump to Commissioner Kavanaugh, then Friend.
Thank you. I just have a quick question about the mechanics of this. What would Douglas County or the Douglas County Board be required to do to implement this service?
Yeah, absolutely. So just like your other employee benefit programs, it would be something that you would agree to offer to employees and select which option, if you were to move forward, which option you would want to help offset for employees. And then we'd work directly with your HR and benefits team to set up the website with the marketing, work with the marketing campaign, and then track utilization back to you.
Are there any other counties in Nebraska that participate?
No, we're currently working closely with the Nebraska Association of Counties to determine if it's a good fit for their health pool, which I believe covers roughly 62 counties, but we're in discussions with them right now. So we did just roll it out the fourth quarter of last year. So.
And I know you're a county organization, but are there any municipalities in Nebraska that you're aware of that participate in this?
Not currently with Savvy, no. I would imagine every entity in the state is working to help their employees sign up for public service loan forgiveness. They're just likely doing it through a manual process.
I'd just like to note for the record that the United States pioneered free public education, and I participated in it myself, and family members of mine, children, have participated in free public education. I had no idea that it was communism. That is absolutely news to me. Most nations, industrial democratic nations on earth, have free public education from kindergarten through college, and we have it through, I think, the 8th grade or the 12th grade, I guess. But the idea of free public education is as American as apple pie, and if we talked about free public education for post-secondary education, that wouldn't be anything other than extending the free public education that we initially had for grade schoolers and extended to high schoolers. And if you go to Canada, Germany, Japan, you're going to find free public education through post-secondary education. No idea that it was communism. I don't know if those people do either, but thank you for your help.
Thank you, Commissioner. We'll jump to Commissioner Friend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I certainly don't want to be redundant, but there was a point that I was trying to make, and what Tim is displaying here, my daughter asked me about, I don't know, about a year and a half ago, one of my daughters asked me, or she said, oh, I'm unhappy with the president. I said, well, why? Because he promised that he'd pay my student loans off. I go, well, A, you need an economics lesson. B, it's not what happened. What President Biden did, what the Biden administration did, was determined to be unconstitutional, arguably, a blanket proposal to eliminate student loan debt. When I took student loans, I signed contracts. Has nothing to do with communism. It has nothing to do with free education. I signed contracts for that money, and I owed it, and I paid it. What's happening here, just so we're clear, if this was a blanket forgiveness of all student loan in the nation, I'd be gaslighting it. I'd say this is ridiculous. What's happening here doesn't make any sense. Those contracts cannot be null and void. The Supreme Court's already made a decision on it. What's happening here, again, is the idea of helping individuals weave their way through federal and state legislation on the books right now. Help them weave their way through a process that becomes extremely confusing. You know how many young people have trouble filing their taxes on April 15th because they can't weave their way through the process? H&R Block makes millions. Look, simply put, I have a business. I can reduce the amount of gross income with the expenses that I utilize on a given year. You know what I do? I take advantage of federal law. I look at what I can actually write off and I do it. So if I made $80,000 next year with my business, I can come out, show those type of numbers and say, look, I only made 20 grand. Is that fair? I think we could probably take 10 people in this room to say, no, that's not fair. We can take another 10 to say, you're taking advantage of the federal law as it exists to pay your taxes at the end of the year. Look, if what Tim was promoting was I can't believe I'm saying it. If what he's promoting is Marxism, then my reading of the Communist Manifesto is incorrect. What I'm saying is we have tax codes, we have federal law, we have state law, and I have not heard a thing yet that indicates to me that I should start gaslighting and saying, you know what, we're not blanketing everybody and we're not paying off everybody's student loans. So I'm not mad, I'm just loud. I don't like repeating myself, even though I do all the time. It's not what we're talking about here. I've been here 3 years. I haven't done anything that NACO's told me to do. I'm not now. Tim's shown us some information. I think it's valuable. We're not making a decision on it right now, but I think that there's information that has to be disseminated. End of story. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Borgeson.
So next steps would be I'll bring back a proposal for approval on the board agenda for this program. Again, it is taking advantage of what is currently out there, or our employees taking advantage of it, that is currently out there that they may, again, not know, not understand, or have potentially just mismarked something and got denied. So again, I am very proud of being a past president of the National Association of Counties, because we work for the counties and we have brought amazing resources and tools to this county that we wouldn't have had otherwise. And some, in fact, that have brought in almost $9 million of additional revenue. So you can knock all you want our national association, but they work for the counties, and I'm proud to be have been a president and still a part of it, and to be able to bring this to our employees again for not only the recruitment but the retention piece of their employment. So thank you, Tim, for being here, and good luck with your conversation with Nebraska Association of Counties. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other comments on this item? It's just presentation today, so no action will be taken today. All right, thank you, Tim. We'll jump to our agenda. Item 6, public hearing. There is one item, item A, holding a public hearing and approve a bond resolution regarding the issuance by Douglas County, Nebraska of its revenue bond series 2024 in a principal amount not to exceed $5,500,000, the proceeds of which are to be loaned to Outlook Nebraska Incorporated, a Nebraska nonprofit corporation and 501(c)(3) organization. All right, with that being said, we do have some guests here.
Good morning. My name is Colleen Duncan. My office is at 2120 South 72nd Street, 68124. I am a partner at Gilmore & Bell. We are the county's bond counsel in connection with this proposed financing. Thank you for allowing us to speak today. The hearing and the related resolution that's before you is related to a conduit bond issue for the benefit of Outlook Nebraska, Inc. With me here today is Nancy Kurtenbach, who is the Director of Finance of Outlook Nebraska, and she'll be here to answer any questions that you have about the project or Outlook itself. As you may know, in order for interest on a bond to be tax exempt, there needs to be a governmental issuer of that bond. And that obviously results in a lower cost of borrowing. Tax exempt bonds bear a lower interest rate. So that's the federal tax rules that require a governmental issuer. In order for 501c3 and nonprofit organizations to take advantage of those rules and to have tax exempt debt, we have this conduit structure. In the state of Nebraska, this is known as the IDB statutes at section 131101, which permit the county to act as conduit issuer. What's really most important for you all is that the county has no financial liability on this bond. All of the principal of an interest on the bond is paid by the conduit borrower. The proceeds of the bond are loaned to Outlook Nebraska by the county, and repayment is made directly to the lender. The resolution that's before you here today provides some of the terms of that bond and the authorization for the bond, and delegates authority to the staff members to finalize the terms of the bond, and approves the documentation in connection with the bonds. If the board approves the resolution today, we'll work as we have been working with the administrative staff and the county attorney's office to finalize the documentation. I'll pause there, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about the legal structure of the documents, or Nancy is available to answer any questions about Outlook or the project itself.
Thank you. So I will open the public hearing so we can engage in discussion on this item. Before I get to commentary from my colleagues, Lori or Patrick, did you want to add a quick note on just the precedent of doing these kind of bonds, because they're kind of a unique bond?
County, Patrick Bloomingdale, County Administrator. Yes, we do these from time to time. There's no exposure, liability, or expense on the county's part. It's just simply we're required to be the conduit per statute. So if you're not required to do it, but we certainly do it from time to time, and it's very beneficial to the nonprofits that need to engage the process.
Thank you. With that, I will jump to Commissioner Kavanaugh.
Thank you. And thank you for this explanation, Council. One quick question. Does the county bear any liability for the $5.5 million bond request?
No, that's a matter of state law. So by law, the county cannot be liable for any amount of the $5.5 million.
Okay, so the taxpayers aren't on the hook for any of this?
Not at all.
Okay. Why is Outlook Nebraska seeking bonding authority rather than just going to a bank and borrowing $5.5 million?
I can answer that too. There is a bank involved, but they get a lower interest rate by going through this process and having the county be involved in this hearing process. The federal tax rules allow them the bond to be tax exempt, so it results in a lower cost of borrowing to the nonprofit.
Okay, but the same borrowing requirements in terms of solvency and all that are involved in getting this credit as
Exactly. The lender is an affiliate of UMB, so we're working with UMB as the lender, and they go through the same credit requirements. As you guys know, that's not involving the county's credit at all. All of that's done, and that diligence is done with Outlook Nebraska as borrower.
Okay. And finally, I'm showing a little bit of my own ignorance here. Who is Outlook Nebraska, Inc., and what do they do?
Outlook Nebraska, Inc. is a nonprofit.
Could you identify yourself for the record?
Oh, I'm Nancy Kurtenbach, Director of Finance of Outlook Nebraska. Our mission is to provide employment for blind and visually impaired, and we produce paper towels and toilet paper. 75% of our direct labor on our production line are blind and visually impaired employees. And the purpose for this capital investment is to continue to support that mission and to expand some of our capacity.
So how long has Outlook Nebraska been in existence?
20 years.
And you currently have a plant here someplace?
Yes, it's on 72nd and F, 4125 South 72nd. It's a mess over there right now, by the way. Thank you.
And how many employees are there?
70.
And the majority of them are these visually impaired individuals?
The direct labor is. Total employment is probably about 40%, 50%.
Okay. And with the help of Outlook Nebraska, Inc., these people are able to hold regular full-time jobs?
Yes, they are, gives them the opportunity to remain independent and, off the, Medicaid, Medicare rules. Some of them do collect Medicaid, but yes.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Commissioner Borgerson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here. I was going to commend you for the work that you have done for those past 20 years with the visually impaired. Those with disabilities, we're always looking for opportunities to be able to add to their quality of life as well. So I commend you for that. And this is really nothing any different than when one of the hospitals come to us for these bond opportunities, and again, using us as just the conduit for that lesser rate, which is a good thing. But anyway, I wanted to thank you for the service that Outlook Nebraska has provided to those with disabilities. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. It's an important mission.
Absolutely.
This is a public hearing. Is there any more commentary on this item? Larry?
Larry Storer, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha 68132. It would be nice if you people could talk back and forth with us while we're at the microphone, but this once again reminds me of, robbing Peter to pay Paul, but use a citizen somehow. Now, the question was asked about the taxpayer being on the hook. The answer was not at all. But the citizen wants to know, does it not cost you some money in the administration of this bond fund, whatever it is, this revenue bond, the follow-up, employee time, county time, which we pay for? So it's not entirely that the taxpayer is off the hook, is it? So be honest. And then the other thing is, last week there was a person up here that's maybe a documenter, likes to refer to himself now as the man in the street. Well, the man in the street might look at this and say, oh, let's see, that's not written out very thoroughly. It sounds like the old Wimpy Burger cartoon, where Wimpy says, oh, I'll gladly pay you tomorrow for a hamburger today. As I read this, I'm thinking, oh, revenue bonds, county time, to Outlook, to a loan to Outlook, but you didn't say who Outlook pays that loan back to. I think you could explain that to the taxpayers so that they don't think that it's a Wimpy Burger. Thank you.
Thank you. And since it's an agenda item, if you actually want to pause and have us answer some of those questions, we actually can while you're commenting. So I'll take a round and answer a couple of those questions. In regards to who it's paid back to, I think you had mentioned it, but go ahead and mention it again.
Yes, Colleen Duncan, bond counsel again. The bond gets repaid. Outlook actually, the county assigns all of its rights over to the lender, essentially, except for some retained rights. But So the Outlook repays the lender directly. No money comes through the county, hits any county funds whatsoever.
Thank you. And then I'm assuming since there's a bank involved and obviously the nonprofit's involved, the bulk majority of the administration is through the bank and the nonprofit, but
Correct. They
how-
work really essentially together. This is a legal structure. If you're familiar with accounting, we kind of think about the county as a disregarded entity for purposes of this transaction. The county's really only involved for purposes of those federal tax rules.
Got it. All right, thank you. Any other comments during the public hearing? If not, I will now close the public hearing. What is the will of the board? Motion by Borgeson, second by, I believe, Rogers. And please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. We'll now move to committee discussion and action. Item 6 on the agenda. First one is finance with budget report as presented and also monthly fee report from the clerk as presented as well. Then we will jump to administrative services. We have 2 resolutions that were placed under admin services by nature of the topic of the resolutions. For quick context, these are related to the extended presentation we had last week on the mental health facility, where we discussed 2 main ideas, one being the renovation of a current building at 42nd and Wolver campus, one being the construction of a potential new mental health facility also on the same campus. We now have these resolutions in front of us for continued discussion and potential action. That action could be to approve one or the other today, or to continue the conversation at forthcoming meetings. So it's the will of the board today, wherever we're at. I will mention that, if there's a strong, on my end, if there's a strong consensus for one or the other today, then that's fantastic. My goal is not to approve one or the other through a simple majority, but my goal is to try to reach a broader consensus amongst the broader board. So with that context in mind, we should now begin discussion on the overall topic of the mental health facility renovation or construction of a new facility, which relates to both 1 and 2. So we'll take them together since it's related to the same kind of ARPA utilization and related funds. So with that being said, Commissioner Cavanaugh.
Thank you. And this is the first time that I've seen either of these documents. However, I have had an opportunity to review what was submitted to us, I believe, at our last board meeting from Mr. Pavandra relative to these option A and option B proposals. Both of them are multi-million-dollar proposals. And what I looked for, and I wasn't able to find, so I had to actually go and try to grab some expertise because our on-board expert, Mr. Morgan, was not immediately available, but we've since had a conversation regarding trying to boil these things down to a per square foot cost. And, I'm no expert on these, but I learned something as a lawyer about if you don't know area of the law, find somebody who does. And we're fortunate enough to have somebody on our board who does real estate. And I was just looking at these from a layman's point of view with, somebody who has some expertise in this. And it came out that option A had a per square foot cost, which wasn't in the original documents for some reason. I think it's a basic question on any real estate development, of about $1,797.53. That's for a 10,125 square foot structure. And option B for a 27,435 foot structure, which was estimated to be between $21 and $23 million overall, was $857.66. So the $16 to $18 million option had a 1,700, almost 1,800 square foot cost, and the $21 to $23 million option had a 857. I'm not sure of these, and I would rely on the expertise of Commissioner Morgan and his years of experience in this area, but it seems to me those are awfully high per square foot costs for this type of facility. And we did get some information from the folks last meeting about these, 18 to $23 million projects relative to the size, and specifically, I think it was 18 rooms with beds for the acute care. And I'm just a poor country lawyer here, but if you do 18 beds at $18 million, I think that's like $1 million a bed. And if you do the same 18 beds at $23 million, it's a little more than $1 million a bed. Again, I don't know if I'm looking at this right, but it seems to me to be a little on the high side. That said, I'm in favor of upgrading our ability to do acute care for people with mental health problems. And I think, overall, I would support the concept. The devil's in the details. And now we're presented with a resolution to say, okay, door number 1 or door number 2. Well, I'm not comfortable with maybe doing that today. I'd like to have some time to chew this over and maybe talk to some more experts. I'd also like to entertain door number 3, which is what do we do with the existing facility if we do either one of these? Because my understanding is if you do either one of these, you're going to clear out at least a couple floors of the Douglas County Health Center. And as everyone knows, I've been making a proposal relative to, oh, I'm sorry, my light. I've run over.
Yes,
I'll
you have. Thank you. Appreciate it. We'll loop back around. Commissioner Borgeson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And one of the things that when you look at this that we can't forget is there's more to the project than just the beds. So if you just think about the current operations that is inside our nursing home as the Community Mental Health Center, we are basically lifting it out and placing it in a new location. So we can't look, and of course it sounds better as a sound bite, but it's more than just the beds. We have outpatient, we have inpatient, we have partial hospitalization. So there's a lot more to the operations than just the acute beds, which are very important, but there's more to it. So what we are currently doing inside our nursing home doesn't change the operational aspect of it when we uplift it and move it to a new location. In looking at these, we cannot forget, and I am more in favor of the option B, because in option A, you have to look at relocating the current operations that's in that building, which is the HHS operations, and to relocate them and then start paying, because we own this building, start paying additional lease options on that, which, again, we're trying to get rid of our leases, I thought. But that would increase our cost as a county, probably, as was stated, 300,000 plus, if not more. And that doesn't go away just after we relocate them. That stays with us forever. And so, and we talked about that as well last week. So I'm comfortable with moving forward with today on one of these, because we've again talked about it for a very long time, and we knew what exactly we wanted to do. The only difference is where we want to do it. And I will again state that our community mental health center, for many, many years, we've talked about moving it out of our nursing home, which is a home for our residents. And nowhere in this country, absolutely nowhere, will you find a community mental health center embedded in someone's home. So to me, it's the right thing to do, and I think we've had enough conversation about it, and we need to move forward, not only just for the project itself, but for the timing of the project. And so I hope today that we can do that, because I think all of the information that has been provided to us over the course of these last 2.5 years really hasn't changed other than just the location. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Also, if Sherry and Mr. And Al, if you all want to like scoot on up in case there's any questions, that'll save us a little bit of time. Ron, I'll take a quick round. So go ahead and put my time up there, and then we'll jump back to Commissioner Kavanaugh. I'm glad I did the tour yesterday of Health and Human Services. It did make me think a little bit more between the two options. I definitely want to do one or the other. I definitely want to enhance our community mental health departments and pursue one or the other option. Before my tour, I think I was leaning towards A with the renovation. The positive of A is that, of course, the amount is a lesser cost, which would not deplete all of our ARPA/CARES Act funds, which might leave some funds for some renovation of other buildings that need renovation. So I see that positive. But then I toured the building, and I saw, how the staff, the current staff of Health and Human Services are obviously in there working. I also noticed that it's not just administrative people. It's also staff that actually work with families and provide direct care. We actually saw some families in the building while we toured it. So that makes it a little different when you're talking about, well, could we just put those staff at the Fitz campus on 156? Well, if you're going to make, low-income clients from East Omaha go all the way to 156, that's kind of a barrier that we're creating for them. I also asked about, could we take those Health and Human Service staff, maybe to some of the Harney level vacant offices, because the assessor's office is vacating Harney and county attorney vacated Harney level, which maybe we could, but then we're creating a bigger parking issue because we already have parking issues downtown. Now we'd be adding 100 to 130 staff downtown from the Health and Human Services. So that's another issue on that end. So there's positives and potential negatives with both sides. I'm a little bit torn myself. I might be leaning towards B, but I also see the positives and negatives of both options. I'm curious to know, the range is more or less 21 to 23 million for option B. I'm curious to know how much we can push towards sticking closer to 21 million, which would at least leave us almost 2 million for a little bit of renovation for potentially DCYC or the health center, both of which needs a renovation that we could tie to pandemic-related items that are allowable, like HVAC, air system, windows, et cetera. Al, in a minute's time, how much do you think we could push closer to that 21 number than the 23 number?
Good morning, Commissioners. Al Pavandra, 5060 Dodge Street. So I had three weeks to do a study. Pretty familiar with the site. Had done it before a year ago. It's very conservative. The costs are very conservative. I can't tell you what the soil conditions are. I don't know if there's a dump underneath old building on 42nd and Pacific. So yes, the numbers are very conservative. They're not the square foot numbers that Commissioner Kavanaugh stated at this point. But generally speaking, I think hopefully if things go without any dramatic changes in the cost, I think the low part of both ranges are achievable. If I may, just to talk about the square footage a little bit.
I have 10 seconds, Al, just FYI.
Okay.
We'll loop back around to you, Al. Thank you. Didn't want to cut you off when you got into it. Commissioner Kavanaugh and then Commissioner Boyle.
The idea here is just to take enough time to do our due diligence, and if we could possibly lay this over until our next meeting, which I believe is April 30th, it would allow us to do a couple things. Not all of us, I think, were able to get the tour of the HHS building yesterday that Commissioner Garcia set up, and I'd like to do that. Then what do we do with the vacated space? We have to look beyond the immediate project. What do we do with the vacated space at Douglas County Health Center? We've got 2 floors. We need to have a comprehensive plan. I think that to lay over and discuss and do some of this research would help us not rush through, and we haven't had very many public hearings. I don't think there's been a single Administrative Service Committee hearing on this. Like we did with 156 in Maple, with multiple public hearings and public input on specific proposals, specific construction proposals with our architect in the room. And we avoid some of the errors that maybe were committed in the most recent construction project across the street. I see some of these same things happening. There is an opportunity here to take a couple of weeks, get some expertise on this, maybe even have a public hearing before we come back to this, because now, between last week and this week, we've had less than an hour's discussion with nobody in the room from the public, virtually, with the exception of Larry, man on the street, and no media, and it's just, not that necessary from the point of view of ARPA or anything else to rush this through with that minimum amount of discussion and public input when we can capture this with no harm, no foul in the next couple of weeks. I would have one question for Al, if you could, real quickly, Al. This is a yes or no answer. Was there, in the information that you gave us last week, a per square foot cost estimate for option A and option B? Was there?
No.
Yes? No?
No.
Okay. So I did get some estimate, and I think that Commissioner Morgan has a very good market grasp of this, and we can have this discussion further because obviously you have an idea. That's a key component. If we're going to okay a project, and I don't know, I haven't had a chance to review what you gave us this morning, is there a square foot cost estimate in this document?
Can I explain that, please?
The one you gave us just this morning.
Can I explain that, please?
There is?
Well,
is there or not? Yes or no?
Can I explain that, please?
I'm sorry? I can't hear you.
Can I explain that, please, in more than
No,
a
I
yes or
want
no
a yes
answer?
or no answer. Is there a number in here per square foot cost for option A or option B?
Yes, through division.
There is.
Yes.
Would you direct me to that number?
Yes. If you go to, let's start with option A.
What page is that number on?
That is page 10.
Say again?
Page 10.
If you would speak into the mic, I
I'm
could hear
sorry.
you.
I'm sorry. Page 10.
Page 10.
Item B1, 2, and 3. Through division, you can come up with a square foot number.
Okay, Al, is there a square foot cost number on page 10? And where is that?
It is there through division, sir.
I can't hear you.
It is there through division, sir.
There is no number. I'd have to do some math to get a number. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that correct? Yes or no?
Yes.
That's
Okay. So there is no square foot cost number without doing some math, which I did on the original document. I'm just saying, going forward,
That's time.
you could save us that time by putting a square foot cost number. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Boyle?
So just a couple of my thoughts on this, and again, my own opinions is I don't really feel like the per square foot is I think it's a challenging metric for this particular project because this is not an office building. Hospitals cost a lot to build. I think where I worked before, we built new labor and delivery units, and each room was $1 million. So we are doing that with this at much less than $1 million cost per quote per bed because there's a whole clinic associated with it. If you look at outpatient surgical centers, I think $23 million would be a bargain to get an outpatient surgical center where you have some folks do an overnight stay, and then you've got physicians' offices inside. So I would think of it more of that type of setup as an outpatient surgical center with clinic offices within it. So this would probably be a bargain. I think it's important also to understand that the rooms have to be reinforced because these folks have mental illness. So it can't be just a quote hospital room. It has to be one where fixtures aren't going to be damaged as a result of a psychotic break. So I think square foot, we're comparing apples and oranges here, and so I just don't think that really is quite as applicable unless you were comparing option A to option B. And there we had what Commissioner Kavanaugh stated, Commissioner Morgan said was 1,700 versus 800. So I think that's one big important difference to make. The other thing is I feel ready to make a decision today. I think the other thing we have to think about is the financial aspect for future dollars. I mean, first and foremost, our responsibility is to try to be good stewards of property tax money. And down the road, if we get DHHS into a different space where we have to lease it, that's a forever cost. And I think we can forego that if we keep them in a building that's been relatively newly had some newer updates. And I agree with Commissioner Garcia. We have to make it accessible to the people who need the services, and having parking and having it on the east side of town is going to be more beneficial, again, in my opinion. I think the other thing to note is that Public Properties has reviewed these, and they feel that option B is probably the better idea. And I think we have to use the expertise that we have in front of us. And so I would tend to follow some of that as well. So I think the last point to make is that I think it's okay to make a decision today, because even though we don't have a comprehensive plan for what we're going to do with the space at CMHC, we don't need a comprehensive plan, but we have some ideas down the road. It seems like they're providing more services than they ever have before and developing relationships with hospitals. They're doing more hospice care and dementia care. So we don't have to have a comprehensive plan for them, but I think those types of ideas are ways we can utilize that space down the road, which would not be a financial detriment to the county. So that's my 2 cents. I would support option B because of those things, and I appreciate the input from all of my colleagues here.
Thank you, Commissioner Boyle. We will jump to Commissioner Morgan.
Okay, and I did do the tour yesterday with Roger Garcia and appreciated that tour that we spent probably an hour there at least. What I'm looking at is the sheet that we were given yesterday when we toured Jeff. And what I see is the current square footage, and I've been out there a number of times and looked at it in the 2 locations, which is a very inconvenient situation. I mean, because there's more waste if you could have it all together. And I do think what Commissioner Boyle said about the rent is ongoing forever, that $300,000. You look at option B. What we're doing is we're using approximately around 16 usable square footage currently with those 2 locations, is my understanding. This proposal in B comes out to somewhere around, you reduce the 3,000 feet from 31 to 28,000 square feet. I guess I'm wanting to say, hey, why don't we keep it close to where we are currently with we're not adding beds. We're basically doing the same number of beds. And it's going to be more efficient without question than it is currently. Why can't we get closer to 18,000 feet rather than this 28,000 square feet? Because I want to try to keep that CARES money and use it for some other things, as Commissioner Garcia said, which is important because I think we have to do some renovation, definitely at the youth facility there on 42nd. And more importantly, we need to do some renovation of the space they're going to move out of if we're going to use it. Otherwise, windows, everything, and I've looked at that several times, there's money that's needed for that. And I'd like to see us get this cost closer to that 16, 17 million, even if you're building those rooms at 15 to 20 foot, which is a good size hospital room with a bath, small. That's only 6,000 feet of it, so you've got 12,000 additional square foot if you talked about the 6,000 feet for 18 rooms. So that's where I am with it. And I think Commissioner Kavanaugh's idea, and I think we should look at maybe, is it possible that we could not just renovate where they are, but take a different area of the hospital and put them all together? I mean, is that possible? I don't know that anyone's really looked at that and said, hey, if we move this over there and do this, working with Sherry, who we're fortunate to have, and Aaron, who we're fortunate to have working with the county, is it possible that there's a place that we can come up with a new 18,000 feet altogether in our facility and renovate that and still end up at maybe, a number closer to that 16 to 18 million dollar number rather than being up at the 23 million. And that's where I'm coming from, and I don't want us to just hold this over a week, Commissioner Kavanaugh, because Commissioner Garcia is going to be gone the 30th, so I think it'd
next
be
week
the
I'm
7th.
gone.
Isn't that correct?
Yeah, I'm gone next week and I return the 30th. That's time, Commissioner Morgan. I'll take a quick round just to let Mr. Pavandra perhaps address the spacing question that was brought up in the new proposal, and then perhaps Sherry can address the idea of the current hospital and the space, the potential of doing something there, and why you are against or in favor or whatever you want to say in that regard. But Al and Jeff, do you want to address the dimensions part?
Jeff McGill, Douglas County Public Properties. We have looked at the existing facility for the health center and the space criteria to get into that study phase. We do have some green space out there, but we will be relocating patients, which will cause more cost to the projects. The facility is fairly full right now, so there's a limited space to relocate patients around the facility right now. We do have a project we're working on now, and we are taking some beds out, and Aaron Nelson is working with us, but they're full. So to put CMHC on that campus around the health center, I don't think it's feasible.
And Sherry, did you want to comment at all on that?
Sherry Driver, Administrator of the Douglas County Community Mental Health Center. This is something that we've discussed with public properties over the years, and it hasn't been feasible. The space is, like Jeff has indicated, is full to the brim. We really need to look at an alternative site for the hospital. The facility is a health center that has long-term care in it. The community mental health center is licensed as a hospital. We are two separate and distinct departments. Unfortunately, over the last however many years, the community mental health center has just been plugged and fit into any leftover space. We're leftover. That's what my community mental health center has been. And I apologize. I know that sounds quite rough, but I am here to advocate for those individuals with mental health and substance use that are the most vulnerable in our community. It's a safety issue for those individuals, and it's a safety issue for our staff members, and that's why I'm asking that we move forward with A or B. When we first started looking at this, I was all in on A because I was looking at the finances, thinking this is fiscally sound. And then as I worked with the experts, Jeff and Al, and our team, and I toured the facility and the work that we do, it made sense for long term to move forward with B. Also thinking we do a lot of work with general assistance, and we can do a lot of work with the families that are going into the HHS building. So it actually makes a lot of sense to place us there strategically to increase those working relationships. So that's my thought in regard to the existing facility. I would say separate us.
Yep. The other thing I'd mention, I don't think 16,000 square feet is quite accurate. There is a space on the 5th floor and there's space on the main floor. They have a partial space on the main floor and they have the entire 5th floor. That does not include the use of the pharmacy, does not include the public entry and the circulation spaces between there. So if you add all of those things which we are placing in either a new or a renovated building, it is getting us very close to the number that we had. Where we started in the program is saying, what spaces do you have now? And what spaces are we carrying over? And we may have added an expansion office or two, but it was not significant. That's
Thank you, Al. That's my time. Commissioner Kavanaugh.
You know, I want to do something, even if it's simply upgrading our acute patient capacity. And I'd like to address that specifically because we're not the only ones who have done this. UNMC very recently did a brand new 11-bed acute psychiatric patient unit. So their square footage costs on this specific type of construction, it's not like no one's ever done acute care facilities in our market. Not only have they done it, they've done it recently, and they've done it right down the street from where we're proposing to do this. I would suggest that maybe we get those square foot costs from UNMC and make some comparisons there. The option C that's being alluded to here needs some costs, and I've talked about this for over a year. Could we please cost out what we can do if we vacated floor 5 and floor 1 at Douglas County Health Center? What could we do? How much would it cost? What's the square footage? And we haven't done that. You know, we hear today that we've looked at that, that there's limited space. We haven't seen anything, you know, words on paper, numbers, anything that says, here's what it would look like and here's what it would cost. So you can say what you want about we have looked at this or we have talked about this. I'm talking about the exact same treatment that we've gotten here for option A and option B, which we're trying to rush through today. With support for the concept, I can't support this rush timeline without looking at viable options right on the same campus and similar projects right down the street so that we can get actual comparable costs for doing what we're talking about doing. The fact that the affected agency would like to have the more expensive project does not surprise me at all. I don't think I've ever met an agency that would like to have as much resources put into their efforts as possible. It's just a factor of government. So yes, I can understand that. Whether or not that's good for us and good for the taxpayers is another question entirely. And you get to that by looking at what is the community standard. There's a community standard for building health-related facilities. Matter of fact, health-related psychiatric facilities. As a matter of fact, health-related acute psychiatric service facilities. We haven't got any of that information. We can take a couple of weeks. Commissioner Garcia gets back on the 30th, and maybe develop some of that. It's not going to be developed if we go rushing through and, rubber stamping something today. So I would propose that we lay it over till the 30th.
Commissioner, is that an official motion?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second. The 30th is what you said.
30th, when the Chairman Garcia is back.
There's been a motion by Commissioner Kavanaugh to table until the 30th, second by Morgan. So we'll vote on that specific motion. Yeah. I think you can, yes. Commissioner Friend, you want to speak to that motion?
I think there's lights ahead of me.
Well, now it's a new motion, but.
Okay, well, if you, thank you, Mr. Chair. I will take the time. Good questions raised here. Just keep in mind, I don't know if I've said this before. Watching this stuff is sometimes it gets ugly. Okay, and what I always have to tell myself, and I'm certainly not lecturing anybody, is that these things aren't personal. They really aren't. I respect everybody on this board, and I know we're trying to do what's right, and we know what we're dealing with. We know the magnitude of it, and we know how important it is. But watching legislative processes and working through it is not just like watching it, trying to herd cats, but it gets very, very frustrating. That being said, I don't know. So if we can set the frustration aside, and I know it's there, I don't know, good questions raised, and I don't know that taking more time necessarily gives me heartburn. So if we delay this thing 2 weeks, we're talking about $18 to $22 million of expenditure. Commissioner Borgeson made a very good point. We've been talking about this for a year and a half. That is exactly right. Town hall meetings, information, the changes at 42nd Street, we have been vetting this for an awful long time. Well, these take time. We're talking $18 to $22 million, and we all know that. So I don't necessarily have a whole lot of heartburn with delaying it 2 weeks. If I were to vote right now, somebody had that proverbial thing at my head and said, you have to make this decision at this very moment, I would vote on option B. However, voting on an initiative today, something that I'm leaning heavily toward, there's a caveat. And the caveat, because of the appropriation that we're associated with, anywhere from 17 to 18.2 million, the questions that I have relating to that, I think are pretty important. We have information about costs associated with relocation. I have questions related to the amounts associated with relocation, especially tenant improvement costs. Question A, how do we know what tenant improvement costs are going to be unless we know where they're going to be relocated to? We don't know that. So unless we know the location, are the costs malleable or are they negotiable? Now, again, these four people, I don't know how many are sitting over there. These people sitting in these front rows, they know more about it than I do. And we're trying to learn. We delay this thing 2 weeks, we delay it 2 weeks. My thing is, I want answers to that. There's a $2 to $3 million price tag for tenant improvement costs at 20,000 square feet at $100 per square foot or $150 per square foot. I want to dig into that a little bit. I really do. Now maybe we could do it today. Maybe we could delay it 2 weeks. And the big question is, if we delayed it 2 weeks, what are we going to do for 2 weeks? This is again, we're herding cats, right? We don't have an executive, a chief executive. Roger thinks he is. No, I'm kidding. We do not have somebody that's going to say to the other 6 commissioners, you will do this. This is the direction we're going to go. If I was a general, I could tell my colonel to do it, and he's going to do it. That's not what's happening here. Never has been, never will be. So where we're at now, I think, is very good points made. I like option B, but I like option A better. Especially if we can mitigate the cost of relocation.
That's time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Friend. Again, this is the motion to table. So, Commissioner Borgerson? Yeah. Commissioner Borgerson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and it'll be no surprise that I'm against the layover, and I just wanted to clarify a few things that were said because UNMC did not build a 11-bed inpatient unit. They built a psychiatric emergency center, which is totally different than what was stated. So that isn't even a comparable option to look at. And there has been, as Commissioner Boyle stated, many uses for long-term care areas within the areas if we move the community mental health center out. And one of those that's been talked about for years is the 3 and 4 room bedrooms that we have now, getting rid of those. You talk about being outdated and antiquated. That is definitely one of those. And I guess the last and second, I know sometimes it does sound like we're frustrated, and it does all of a sudden start to turn personal when we're trying to make our points. But and I don't mean it to be that, but I get very irritated when people talk about experts. When we have 3 experts, our own experts, sitting in front of us, and we act like what they're saying to us means nothing. They're the ones who are doing the work on a daily basis, know what their needs are, and I do take exception to the comment that was made that they always look for the most expensive, the most that they can get. What they're looking for, and I will challenge anybody on that statement, what they're looking for is what's going to best suit those that they serve. That's what they're looking for. The rest of the experts, we asked about the associated cost of relocation. We have it right there on the paper. That's their estimate. That's their guesstimate. You're not going to find a definitive answer to that unless we have a building in mind and in place, and there isn't one. And so you're talking, again, more time, more expense. And that's an ongoing cost. It doesn't go away. So even if you took the tenant improvement costs or the whole thing and add that to that 17 or 18 million, you're about at the price tag of what option B would be. And so to me, you know, we can keep talking, which is what I'm hearing we want to do, because in 2 weeks there is nothing, in my opinion, that's going to change either one of these proposals that our experts have put together and presented to us for us to make a decision on. And so I would hope that we don't lay it over and that we move forward with option B. And again, there's a lot of work yet to be done, but we need to make that move. They need us to make that move, and we need to be the leaders to make that move. So I would hope that we can move forward and begin to really delve deeper into what other questions people have of option B moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Morgan.
Okay. And anyone can join me. I'm going to try to make arrangements to go back out there to the facility, look at the present places where we're occupying for the mental health and all that they have on outpatient and the square footage of that in the next few days or week for positive. The other thing that I look at on that page 10 that you mentioned, Al, the new furniture and fixtures, equipment, and survey testing, reimbursements, those 2 items come to over $2 million. Well, first of all, I know when the county attorney moved, he took his furniture that he had in this building and moved over there. and wanted to. He didn't ask, he said, I want what I have. I don't know, to spend $1 million on furniture, pictures, whatever, we ought to look at that. The surveys, testing, AE fees, reimbursables, over $1 million. I just want to be sure on those numbers, because I'd like to see us have some money to do a couple other things that are needed at the present, not their present space, but the building in general, looking at the windows that are rotted and some other things that really are important. And keep in mind this county, and I said it a year ago, not knowing what the legislature would be doing and some other things, we're going to face some real challenges in the future financially with the legislature and what they're moving toward. And they'll probably have a special session real soon too. And keep in mind, when we open a new building and build a new building, it isn't just, that's it. No, we're going to be also having more utilities and other costs with that operation, and we need to be very careful about that, because I'm committed to no mill levy increase at this board as long as I'm here, and hopefully we'll be here a few more years. And I want our finance director to keep in mind any advice also to us always, to make sure we're doing the best we can financially. So those are some things that I'll do in the next 2 weeks if the vote is delayed over. Double check that square footage, because we're going up to around 28,000. You reduce it from 31 to 28. And I want to be sure of my numbers and look at it and say, oh yeah, we are in about 26,000. But normally, when you're building new, you're going to have a greater efficiency with new space. And I've seen it with ConAgra Foods, and I've seen it with large accounting offices. When they've relocated, they've been able to reduce their square footage. Our own office here, the commissioner's office, if we were doing it over, I think we'd save some square footage. It's not that big, but there'd be some efficiencies created. And I just want to look at that for my own satisfaction and doing the best I can as a member of this board. And I do respect all the commissioners. I didn't hear anyone say, and maybe it's my bad attention span, I didn't hear anyone say that you look for the highest rate, because I don't agree that you do that. I think you do a good job of trying to guide us. But we'll see what happens, and thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Morgan. My quick 10-second 2 cents. If we go back to the main motion, I also am leaning towards option B in regards to the tabling motion and tabling topic. I'll follow the will of the majority of the board. I myself will go ahead and abstain and will follow the will of the majority of the board on that question. If it is specifically to whether we should table or not, then Luis and Larry, you can comment. Larry, did you have a comment on tabling?
Thank you. Larry Storr, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, 68132. This is one of those items on the agenda where you didn't have a link on the website to see the documentation, etc. So I just got to use what I've heard here today. But earlier, a number of you, I think, implied that because the federal government has some money floating around there, we should run for the money. But we're supposed to be operating under the concept of federalism. What's not in the Constitution is reserved to the states. It didn't imply that the states should be running to the government for this and that. So I think your comments need to be possibly rethought on that. And then ARPA money may not be there. I don't know how many things that's well, the typical citizen isn't a lawyer, but seems like infrastructure and things like this should not be running for the money because it's federal money and because it's COVID. Just because somebody wanted to call it a national emergency doesn't give you the right to override a constitution. This is what we had a revolution about, the king, and unreasonable rules, which, by the way, under the Open Meeting Act, and your recent changes on your rules, like taking away citizens' comments, but overstaying your 3 to 4 minutes 3 times, maybe during, I don't remember, I'd have to go get a copy off the desk out there and read it, but I had the impression that a number of you spoke over your time and more than 3 times or 4 times, but you let the little old citizen maybe speak once. And you recently wiped that off of your agenda, so citizens can no longer comment. I think you need to change that too. It's maybe time for citizens to do a verbal recall. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Luis?
Luis Jimenez, 2709. Roger, why do I have to speak on the motion?
Because there was a motion made by Commissioner Kavanaugh regarding the tabling, so that is the motion in front of us at the moment. If hypothetically
Okay,
that
well, I'm not a
motion-
commissioner, and if I decide to wait for the main motion and you decided to table, then I won't get to speak.
Yeah, unfortunately, I just have to follow.
So you
the
just let me
rules.
speak.
Luis,
I want to speak on the options. I
I'm
don't
moderating
think
this meeting,
delay
Luis.
over-
You have to talk on the tabling at the moment, please.
Okay, well, you're anti-citizen, Roger.
Okay.
I don't see an issue with a layover since you have more months to commit the ARPA funding. If you wait to commit, you can still work on the design, which will lead you into the construction phase. So yeah, I don't have a problem with a layover. My issue is that I see the 7 of you there, and you want to talk about experts. You're the experts today. You're the government experts. You have 3 speakers in front of you who are following your direction. So yes, it's important that we speak to experts. When I was thinking about this project a year ago, I thought I had fundraising experts in front of me, 7 commissioners who can fundraise outside of property taxes. Evidently, that's not the case, because whether you go to option A, B, C, or D, you're going to be over budget. No doubt about it. Now, I like what Mr. Morgan is saying is that you assign some of the ARPA funding for other improvements, other considerations outside of the mental health issue. So what I think the board should do is commit $10 million this year and fundraise another $15 to $20 million so that you have a facility that the community can be proud of, a facility that will be providing real and effective services.
Okay, back to the tabling,
Facility
Luis,
that
please.
changes the landscape.
Back to the tabling, please,
So
Luis.
if you lay this over, you will see that these options aren't the best option, or the details provided during this meeting may not be the whole story. So the question is, do you lay over? Well, it's moot because you have a few more months to commit these funds. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, on the motion on tabling, if nothing else, we'll move. Or we'll vote. Yeah, the motion is to table for 2 weeks till April 30th.
Motion fails. Commissioner Garcia abstaining, Commissioner Rogers, Borgeson, and Boyle voting no, other commissioners voting yes.
This takes us back to the main motion. The main motion, rather the main discussion is the two resolutions. There actually hasn't been a motion for either one, so this just takes us back to the main conversation. Commissioner Rogers?
I move to approve item 2.
There's a motion to approve Resolution 2. Motion by Rogers, second by Borgeson. Item 2. Yep. That takes us
Can I
to,
speak on the motion?
that takes us to discussion of the motion, yes. And Luis, I will be nice and go straight to you. Go ahead, my friend.
Okay, thank you. I support option B because it's a standalone building. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so comment on the motion to approve option 2. Larry, if you want to go on option 2, feel free.
I think that was highly irregular to let Lewis hang on the line there for another couple of minutes, way over his time. I kind of wonder if he's one of these citizen reporters, street reporters, called a documenter. He seems to have been awfully educated about your tactics lately. Does he visit with you every week before the meeting or something?
Larry, if
But
you
I
want
think
to
that was out of order.
meet in my office anytime, you are welcome, my friend. We'll have coffee. Commissioner Friend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had mentioned earlier, I didn't think laying over, 2 weeks is 2 weeks. I had already mentioned that $17 to $22 million. I didn't have any heartburn over that. However, we are where we are. I've already mentioned that I like option A, and this won't take long. The reason I think option A is some of the things I already laid out, is that I think that we can look into a variety of different options, especially when it comes to costs associated with relocation. What option A provides us, option B is a good option, don't get me wrong. What option A provides us is flexibility. Again, I am not the expert, but I'll tell you right now, when I look at the costs associated with relocation, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 items in here that provide us flexibility. And it's a $17 million price tag with flexibility associated with it. We're the ones that control the purse strings. We are. We say, here's what you can spend and here's what you don't have the amount to spend. What my fear would be is that when we hit 18.2, excuse me, when we hit 21 million on option B, what are the odds 5 months from now that we're out of options? Option B doesn't provide any. So, look, I digress. I'm going to vote no on option B because I like option A. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Other commentary? Let's see here. Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. Yes. The motion was to approve option B on the agenda here. Option 2, excuse me. I think I said B. Yeah.
Motion passes. Commissioners Kavanaugh, Friend, and Morgan voting no, but all other commissioners voting yes.
All right, that completes Administrative Services Committee. Looking at the agenda here, we just had Human Resources Weekly Personnel Report from Civil Service as presented. There is no need for executive session. Our next meeting is next Tuesday, April 23rd, though as mentioned, I myself will be at a conference in Arizona on public housing geared towards county officials. So I'll be participating in that conference. In the meantime, Commissioner Friend will serve as chairman for that day. With that being said, motion to adjourn by Rogers, second by Boyle. Please vote. No, no executive.
Motion passes 7-0. We are adjourned at 11:21 a.m.